Monday, February 10th, 2020, beginning at 5 p.m. in the Boardroom Administration Building of the McAllen Independent School District, 2000 North 23rd Street, McAllen, Texas. At this meeting, there may be discussion and actions on the board items as subject listed below. Items listed in the agenda may be taken in order of shown on the agenda unless removed from the consent agenda. Items identified within the consent agenda will be acted upon at one time. We now go to the public comment portion of the meeting. We have 2 people signed up for the public comment, but before doing that, there's some housekeeping rules that I must read. The board encourages public comments at the board meetings according to board policy, BED local, and related district administrative procedures and practices. Number 1 is a person wanting to make a statement to the board are required to register within the superintendent's secretary 1 hour prior to the start of the scheduled meeting. Audience participation at the board meeting is limited to the early stages of the meeting. At all other times during the board meetings, the audience shall not enter into discussion or debate or matters during this time unless requested. Each participant is limited to 2 minutes per meeting to make comments to the board. Should the speaker drift from the stated subject or become disruptive or abusive, he or she will be given a warning. If a second warning is required, then the speaker may forfeit the remaining time to speak. The board will not tolerate any disruption to the meeting by members of the audience. At this time, we have 2 people that have signed up within the time limit to speak. The first is Mrs. Castro. Mrs. Castro wants to speak about the approval and updated local board policy, GE local relationship with parent organizations. And we are going to have Mr. Alvarado as a timekeeper, so se van a dar 2 minutos.
I will.
¿Listo?
Listo. Ok. Honorables miembros del board directivos, con el poder viene la responsabilidad. Emmanuel Kant. Es muy común que las personas quieran poder sin responsabilidad, pues su idea de poder es no estar ligados a nada. Pero la responsabilidad es la garantía del resultado al que está destinado el poder que se tiene. Desde ese tiempo he buscado esa responsabilidad en mis líderes educativos, pero aún no la encuentro. El día de hoy discutirán parte de las pólizas GE que regulan las organizaciones de padres y maestros. Ustedes tienen el poder de crear pólizas y reglamentos, pero ¿quién tiene la responsabilidad de vigilar y supervisar dichas pólizas sean acatadas? En mi experiencia, nadie. Por eso que, cito, McAllen ISD es completamente independiente de las organizaciones. Lo que contrasta, en mi opinión, con 1, Código de Educación 26001-E. Pólizas G que enlaza y afilia a las organizaciones.
1 minuto.
Manuales y entrenamientos donde se resumen. En resumidas cuentas, estamos sujetas a la aprobación de McAllen ISD. En conclusión, ustedes tienen el poder de crear pólizas, que en el momento que decidan llevarlas a cabo nos limitan, como es en mi caso, que después de 8 meses no he podido recaudar un solo dólar para mi escuela. Pero nadie tiene la responsabilidad de asegurarse que estas pólizas se lleven a cabo, en muchos de los casos. Nadie tiene la responsabilidad de asumir las consecuencias de la negligencia que ocurre muchas veces bajo su supervisión. Porque, cito, no podemos obligar a nadie a seguir las pólizas. Entonces las preguntas son, ¿quién tiene el poder y la responsabilidad? Porque no pueden ser separadas. ¿Y qué otras pólizas se omiten sin consecuencias y sin responsables?
10 segundos.
El poder mal usado puede arruinar esas mismas fuentes de poder. Russell Nelson. Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias a usted.
We now have Ms. Nicole Lopez, and she will be speaking about the approval of update to board policy GE local relations with parent organizations.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. I'm here specifically to speak on behalf of the Mackay Band Boosters and the band boosters in general. We fully heartily agree that consistency is important, however, not to the detriment of the organization. Mr. Esparza in last month's meeting repeatedly questioned how having alumni or non-parents as boosters and officers hurts an organization, and he was not provided an answer. And I cannot speak for any other group but band, but I can say not having alumni serve in their positions does negatively impact our organization. When it comes to band boosters, we're not just fundraising. We also assist in planning and organizing events, concerts, and performances. Two of our biggest events are Pigskin and Bands of America. McAllen has hosted Bands of America for the last couple years, and Pigskin will rotate, coming back to McAllen this fall. These are huge statewide marching competitions.
1 minute.
Some of the schools for BOA came down as far as Austin, El Paso. They come from all over the state. And currently, these events are organized by our band council, which is, for the main part, all alumni. So if the board were to immediately eliminate their ability to be on the council, we would be starting from scratch to organize these monster events. To expect parents to take on this role and to have to reach out to sponsors and vendors and national event organizers with no experience or connections
30
is
seconds.
ridiculous and dooms us to certain failure. This would be disastrous, not only for the district, but also for the city, if we were to have a failed attempt, because they would just go to a different venue. So we agree that there needs to be consistency, but again, for when it comes to the specific councils,
10 seconds.
that we need to go ahead and leave it as is. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And those are the only two individuals that signed up, so we thank you. At this time, we will recess to closed session. The Board of Trustees may go into closed session pursuant to Section Code 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following: human resource recommendations for school year 2019-2020, human resource employment resignations for school year 2019-2020, pending or potential litigation, or possible real estate acquisition. So at this time, at 5:12, we are now in closed session. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's exactly 6 o'clock, and we will reconvene into open session. For the record, nothing was voted upon or in closed session. Before we continue, I'd really like to thank the Texas Classroom Teachers Association for providing dinner for the board. We really appreciate that. With that being said, we're going to go into the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be by Trustee Tony Forina, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be by Mrs. Debbie Crane Alizeda.
Lord God, creator of all, remind us now of your guiding presence. Open our minds to the ideas and opportunities before us. Fill our hearts with compassion and generosity for each other. We pray this day for the well-being and success of our children, our colleagues, our families, and our community. Open our mind to the task at hand. Open our ears to each other, and open our hearts to your will. Bless each of us and grant us wisdom as we make work today decisions that will affect our children today and in years to come. Be with us and lead us throughout this day. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We go to item number 7, which is the public hearing for the 2018-2019 District Texas Academic Performance Report. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The Texas Education Code, Section 39, requires the Board of Trustees to publish this report annually, and the taper includes campus performance objectives, report of violent or criminal incidents, and information received from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, along with hearing that allows for public discussion. We must also disseminate the report within our district, and this item is for information purposes only. And I have Ms. Bridget Vito give us more information.
All right, good evening. Each district's Board of Trustees must hold this public hearing to discuss the district's annual report within 90 days, and this taper report was received December 12th, 2019, and the winter break days are not included. Within 2 weeks following the public meeting, each district must widely publish its annual report, including posting it on district websites and other public places. And these are the areas that the guidelines say in Texas Education Code that must be reported and showcased in this public hearing tonight. The actual document is over 800 pages long, but these are the highlights that must be acknowledged in the public hearing tonight. And one of those areas highlight is we must show the district's accreditation status, which is superior passed with a state accountability of a rating A. The special ed determination status meets requirements, and the accreditation status of the district is accredited. And there should be an overview of the state accountability ratings. So in the 2018 school year, we're showing there the data of how many students, how many campuses. This year's report looks different than last year because there's 31 campuses, not 33. And then the class of academic 17-18, it shows the 16-22 graduates. 29 of those campuses met standard. 1 is met alternative standard, Lamar Academy, and 1 not rated. And of course, the district received an A overall. And this is just an overview of how the district looks on the star side of it, all subjects. And all of that, if we saw this compared to the year prior, is growth on every subject. SAT scores, all subjects, average scores, these are what it is for the class of 2018. It lags 1 year. So we're showing the class of the work coming from the 17-18 group of graduates. And this is also the same for the ACT. All of this is in that 800-plus document, but these are the highlights that the requirements require to be showcased in this public hearing. And this is one that must be shown. It's showing, and it lags 2 years. So the high school graduating class of 2016-17, It has been studied how they did in the academic year 17-18 in the post-secondary settings. And you can see that there are the post-secondary, there's 542 of those 1593 graduates that went to 4-year university. 2-year university, 476. The independent colleges and universities, 44. Not trackable, 90. Not found, 445, for a total of 1593. And it's showing also how the grades went there on the ones that were reported. This is another area that must be reported in public, which is the report of criminal and violent crimes. And there's incidents that's been included in there. There's different type of incident codes. The ones where our district shows something are listed here. And it'll show you it'll show you at each campus by those incident codes, the name of those incident codes, and also if we had any in the school year of 18-19. Also new this year is the requirement of a display of violence prevention programs and violence intervention policies. And this is really, really strong, and this is where the district is, of course, with the emotional intelligence and the framework of student learning. The counselors run district-wide guidance lessons at every campus. There's monthly drug prevention, anti-bullying, military connectedness support coming to the families where their parents are, or a sibling is in the military. And then now, required this year, first time, is to show the legal policies that are in place to show all of the intervention to keep the campuses safe. And then last is the requirement to have this disseminated at all of the campuses. It also shows where we will be, where it'll be at the McAllen District website. It's all of those links is where we will have it posted. We will also post it at the Chamber of Commerce, at our public libraries, on all of our websites. Our parental involvement personnel at every campus, there will be letters that go out on behalf of the principals for support, and there's meetings to go over any and all parts of this report that the parents could have questions on. And if you have any questions, or the public, I'll be glad to answer those.
Okay. At this time, at 6:08, I am going to recess the regular board meeting and open up the public hearing portion of the meeting, so if there's any questions from anybody.
So if anybody wants comments, they can step up.
Right.
Ask 3 times. Ask 3 times. You asked 3 times.
Okay. Is there anyone that would like to ask any questions about the subject pertaining in the public hearing? Okay. Is anyone from the board or the public like to speak or say anything on the public hearing portion?
I just had a quick question, Ms. V. On the SAT and the ACT, we're definitely surpassing Region 1. And then on the state, we're just a little bit low. And I know we've been working on that. What's, not going too much in the weeds, what are some of the areas that y'all are focused on to kind of get over that hump?
I mean, absolutely, it's the instruction that goes on in the classroom. I mean, the better they read and write and they can do their arithmetic, this is what it shows on a national standard. There's also preparation classes, there's ACT initiative, there's SAT. We do the pre-SAT, the PSAT. Anything else you want to add to that, Dr. Ibarra?
Well, just to reiterate, yes, we are expanding the opportunities that we provide to students to test in advance, to test prep, not only through the regular instruction that happens on a daily basis, but also through the different camps that we're hosting on Saturdays and into the summer. So this year, for the first time, we're also hosting, very proud of this new initiative, an ACT camp. We send teachers to training because we're believing choice. So some students prefer ACT, others prefer SAT, so we give them choice. And that way they have multiple opportunities to improve that score. And so, yes, we're doing well, but we can do better, and so those are some new initiatives that we're doing this year.
Okay.
The
I
ACT camp
appreciate-
and the SAT district-wide.
And it's important that we get the kids into college, right? I mean, there's no doubt. But I think also what, very important to most parents that send their kids to college, that we want them to finish. And so I'm looking at the graduation rates, and they look really good. And I know we're just as strong as any other school district in our area in the state too, as far as sending our kids to college and then having them graduate. I went to a signing today, and some of the board members did too, and we love going to those. But what I told the young man and the young students is, this is great, but this is not your achievement. The achievement is when you're walking across that stage, getting that diploma, whatever school it is. And so I'm interested to see what our numbers are compared to other school districts. I know they're high. And when people ask me why McAllen ISD, and I tell them that because when you send your kids to college and you spend your hard money, or what is the sacrifice and all that on families, you want to make sure that they're prepared. So I know this is good, but maybe some other time we can kind of share what those numbers are in relation to somewhere else. I'd like to,
Yes.
and I don't know. I just assume that they're better is what I've heard. So I'd really like to see where we're at compared to everybody else.
Yes, we can give you that data. That data comes from the National Clearinghouse, and it is provided to us, it compares us to the rest of the school districts here in the valley, the state, and the region. So
Okay.
yes.
That's all
Any
I
other
have.
questions? Okay. At this time, at 6:11, I'm going to close the public hearing portion and reconvene into the regular board meeting. So we go on to item number 8, which is the superintendent's report. Dr. Gonzalez.
Oh, yes, sir, Mr. President. McAllen ISD is offering classes for our parents through the Office of State and Federal Programs, and we're very proud to provide this service to our parents because it goes beyond just educating children and really having an impact on the whole household. And we recently produced a video to highlight this program, and we'd like to share it with you all at this time.
Hi everyone, Lisa Cavazos here for the Student Outreach Team. We spend a lot of time talking about the awesome opportunities that exist for students within our district. Today, I'm at the Navarro campus where federal programs are housed. Here, parents can participate in a wide variety of courses in subjects such as computers, English as a second language, GED, also cricket design, jewelry making, and sewing. It's an amazing way to get involved as a parent in our district and also meet other parents from across our wonderful city. If you have questions or would like information about participating in any one of these programs, you can reach out to any one of our campuses across the district or come here to the Navarro campus to inquire directly.
Thank you.
We go to item number 9A, recognition of Board of Trustee legacy. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. Now we want to recognize those who have helped establish a legacy of excellence here in McAllen ISD, and we want to give something back to those who previously served our community on our school board. This evening, we're proud to honor Mr. Francis Lynn. Mr. Lynn served on the board from 1953 through 1959. He served 2 years as board president from 1955 through 1957. Schools like Zavala Elementary and Travis Junior High opened during those years. Mr. Lynn was also part of a board that helped lay the groundwork for the construction of future campuses like Jackson and Alvarez Elementaries. Please join me in a round of applause for Mr. Francis Lynn.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Item number 11A is approval of proclamation regarding Career Technology Education Month. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. This month of February has been designated as CTE Month by the National Association of Career and Technical Education Association. A CTE will feature students who are a representation of a few of the programs of study we offer to our students. Mrs. Bridget V. will introduce our outstanding students and staff, and then Trustee Debbie Crane Aliceda will read the proclamation, and administration is recommending action on this item.
Can I get a motion, please? Got a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0 with Mr. Saldívar.
All right, our first student we're featuring tonight is Mr. Jared Gutierrez from Lamar Academy. Paulina Salinas from Memorial High School. Darren Everidge, Rowe High School. Valerie Aldana, McAllen High School. Jessica Martinez, Rowe High School. Evie Martinez, Memorial High School. Raul Vivian, McAllen High School. Sergio Hernandez, McAllen High School. Maria Robles, interpreter for the deaf. Linda Babalta, CTE coordinator.
While y'all are setting up for the picture, I'll read the proclamation. Proclamation. Whereas February 2020 has been designated Career Technical Education Month by the Association for Career and Technical Education and the McAllen Independent School District. And whereas students in career technical education programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase student engagement and achievement while gaining the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness. And whereas ensuring that employers have access to a qualified workforce, which is a crucial step in ensuring continued economic growth and global competitiveness. Now, therefore, I, Debbie Crayon Liceda, Member Board of Trustees of the McAllen Independent School District, do hereby proclaim that the month of February 2020 is observed as Career and Technical Education Month. McAllen ISD encourages all students, staff, and community members to become familiar with the services and benefits offered by the career technical education programs at McAllen ISD, and to support and participate in these programs to enhance their individual skills and productivity. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the McAllen Independent School District to be affixed on this 10th day of February, and it is attested to by our Secretary, Conrado Alvarado.
Yeah, Mr. Everett, why don't you take one step? And, excuse me, I'm sorry. Oh, okay, oh, thank you. Needed to be about 6 inches back. Okay, make sure I can see everyone. Okay, here we go. And 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Can you just hold it for 1 second?
See you guys. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to move up items 16B, 16C1, 16C2, and 16C3.
16,
what?
16B, which is the approval of the updates of board policy, and then the other items, 16C1, 16C2, 16C3, the sale of the real property. Any takers?
okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
We have a second.
Oh.
So it's 16B, 16C1,
Yes.
16C2, and 16C3.
Correct.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We now go to B1, approval update of board policy GE local relations with parent organizations. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Administration's recommending the revision of board policy GE local to limit membership in a specific booster organization/council to include only district employees or parents of a student who is currently enrolled in the district and an active member of the team or student organization the booster organization council has been established to support. Administration has reviewed our policies and practices surrounding these organizations, and we feel that it is important to streamline membership requirements to ensure consistency district-wide. Presented as a second reading this evening, we are recommending action on this item.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rosado. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Can I get a second? Motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion?
Where do you want to start? Go.
Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Don't know where to start on this. There's a lot of points on this particular issue. When this item was first brought to the board, I believe it was the same time as the item to accept monetary donations from booster clubs. And I think the general consensus of the general flow of the conversation that evening was that we should encourage donations from booster clubs and not discourage them, so that obviously the organizations would benefit from it. My first thought was, why would we not accept a volunteer coming to help at the school district? Time is money, money is time. People have said it a million times, and whether someone contributes money through the organization or contributes time to the organization, I think we should wholeheartedly accept the time or the money. I still couldn't figure out why this item was being brought forth, so I did a little research and made some calls. And there might be, without going into too much detail, there may be some issues with personalities. There may be some issues with disagreements. You know what? These are grown people. These are adults. These are supposed to be example to our children. Let's figure it out. But to bar someone from offering their time to help us, I don't think is the answer. We all grew up being taught that community service was the greatest service of all. Our parents taught us to do it, and we've taught our children how to do it. Judges in court demand it of people. Some of our educational programs require it of our students before graduation, that community service should be a part of their life. And I think everyone benefits from that community service. Whether you show someone how to contribute more community service, or whether you're the beneficiary of their time and their effort. And I think we should continue to encourage that community service. And the more and more I thought about it, especially this last weekend, you know, I came to the conclusion that all of us are volunteers. All of us are here to volunteer. And the policy, I think, says if you don't have a student in the organization, that we're not going to let you volunteer. Well, not everybody on this school board has children in the school district. Now, are we going to be hypocritical? Change this policy? Or are we going to be true to form and say we should encourage community service? Different people have different talents, and they provide community service where they feel where they are most needed, where they feel that they can do the most good. You go to church, and there's an usher. And if that's what they feel good doing in the community, well then, let them do that. We obviously feel comfortable up here. Sure, we get elected, and sure, we have to go through the election process, and that's fine, but we feel comfortable up here, and the community should let us serve the community in that capacity. A parent, the parents who bring food to the teams, the people who go to the schools and read to our kids in the library. How about our Winter Texans, who come to our libraries and have reading hours with our children. Are we saying that we're not going to welcome them anymore? No, I don't think so. I think anyone who qualifies to want to serve in this community, that we should let them do so. And I disagree with the policy change. I'm going to vote against the policy change, and I would encourage my colleagues and my fellow trustees to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Trustee Vela. Anyone else?
I'll go. Yay to what you just said. Yeah. Ditto to what Trustee Vela just said. I also have some concerns, just as far as legal concerns for Mr. Crane. The attachment is not in board book, and the attachment that's in SharePoint is incomplete. It doesn't have the changes that are being proposed, and it's not in the attachment on board book for 2 weeks ago either. So even though it's a second reading, somebody could have gone back in board book and looked at the attachment then. It wasn't attached to the agenda item at the original meeting. It's not attached to the agenda item this meeting. The only thing that's in board book is the face page, no attachment. So I don't know how, if we can even take action on that because it's not posted. I don't know.
Well, have each of y'all received a hard copy of it?
I have a hard copy from 2 weeks ago that I brought, but the copy that's in my SharePoint, it does not have so I just want to make sure we're allowed to vote on something if the content isn't there. The only thing that's there is the agenda face page.
Right.
And she's right. I mean, I haven't had chance to see if there's any changes from the last time either, so.
The question is, was it properly posted and required by law for Open Meetings Act? And that requires the agenda to be posted.
The agenda was
So
posted.
if the agenda is posted, then the board's going to have to decide if the board members have not received the backup documentation, or if it's available now to look at it now.
On our
maybe
packet,
move
it's
it
not.
to a later portion of the meeting. We could do that.
Well, I'll continue on while y'all figure that portion out. I ditto what Trustee Vela said. Also, I think that all these organizations have their bylaws, and those bylaws are what you use when you're going out for grants, when you're opening up a bank account, when you're forming your 501c3. The IRS has your bylaws, and one of the most important factors in those bylaws is membership and how you form membership. I don't think we have any right to come in after the fact and say, oh, yes, you've already paid somebody to create bylaws, you've submitted them to the IRS, you've submitted them to the bank, you've submitted them to all these organizations to get your grants, but now we're going to go in there and micromanage you and tell you who you can and cannot have in your membership. Now you're going to have to go back and amend your bylaws because we just messed that up for you. So I think that that's one of the unintended consequences that I think that everybody up here needs to understand as well, because not only are you telling these organizations that you don't value all their participants, but you're also telling them that you're going to now have to incur a cost and go and redo your bylaws and resubmit them to the bank, to your grants, and to the IRS to see if you now qualify for a 501c3. So I think that's something else that we need to consider. And I will yield the floor because I think Trustee Vela said it great.
Thank you, Mr. Suarez. I have a couple of questions, I guess for Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, you brought this change before the board a couple of weeks ago, and most of the board policy updates come from TASB, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did this one come from TASB?
No, this is something that we proposed to TASB. They helped us get it in the right format, and this, what you see here is what was returned from TASB.
Okay. And when I asked you, or let me ask you this, where did this come from? I mean, did you just go to that policy and say we want to revise this one, or what was the reason behind that?
Administration opted to make these changes in this policy, so we drafted it, sent it off to TASB, and they helped us get it in this format.
And when you say administration, who in administration asked for a change, I guess is what I'm asking?
The executive leadership team,
The whole team wanted this change?
the executive leadership team.
Okay. Any particular reason that, I mean, it came up in discussion and they want, the leadership team, out of all the policies we have, said, we need to change this one?
Well, as was discussed last time, is just to get some people with invested interests. If you have a kid enrolled in the district or you're a school employee, as the policy states here. And also by rotating new members, and you get some fresh blood, some fresh viewpoints on the committee, so you have people with vested interest, kids still in the system.
And one of the other questions I asked you last time, if there was any particular reason where it would be harmful to allow these volunteers to serve as members or officers of these organizations. You didn't have an answer. You couldn't come up with one, because I figured there wasn't a bad reason for allowing them to stay. I know you asked Dr. Gonzalez, and he mentioned something about auditing purposes and streamlining. Can you elaborate on how that would streamline auditing purposes?
It's not necessarily streamlining auditing purposes, it's just due to a couple of the audits that have come up and some of the accounting and some of the things that we're seeing just in internal audits in general. We wanted to make sure that we had people that were parents, that were employees, that had kids in the system with regard to people that could be officers. Now, if somebody wants to volunteer, we welcome anybody to volunteer. I mean, we're not saying that somebody can't volunteer their time. We absolutely want people to volunteer their time. But when you look at audits and some of the findings that we're seeing over the last couple of years, we wanted to make sure that everybody that was a voting member, an officer, we thought it would be in the best interest of the district if they were parents, if they were employees, if they had kids that participated in that particular area, but anybody from the community could volunteer.
And so I guess my question then would be, how would it make a difference if it was an employee or a parent, or as you, the three that you indicated, how would that make a difference for auditing purposes, as opposed to a non-parent, a non-employee? How would that make a difference?
It doesn't make a difference for auditing purposes. What it does is the people that are on that committee would be an employee, would be a parent. We believe they'd have a vested interest in having a kid that was in the band, a kid that was actually in that particular environment. So it's not to say that somebody can't volunteer. Anybody can volunteer. What we're saying is, and it's not going to impact auditing in any form or fashion, but we're just saying that we believe that if you have a kid in that organization, we believe that if you're an employee in that organization, that it wouldn't impact auditing, but it would give us more control.
In what sense?
In
As
sense-
opposed to a person who's not a parent and not an employee? I mean, how would you have more control over that person, I guess is what I'm asking.
What we would do is we'd have an opportunity for training people that have a vested interest, that have students in the organization.
And we don't train the people that are there right now? I know that you put on trainings every year, don't you, to train officers and booster club members? Do you
Yes,
not do that?
Yes, sir.
So how would that be different?
It wouldn't be different. We're just saying that we would rather, as an administration, work with parents or employees or with people that have children in the organization. We're not saying that we can't train somebody that doesn't have a kid or somebody that's been volunteering for 20 years. We're not, or an officer for 20 years. We're not saying that. What we're saying is we believe that it would be in the best interest of the district to have them, and that's why we're bringing it to the board for a vote. I mean, that's what we believe, and as we audit all the policies as we go through, we're trying to put our policies in a position where we believe we can be as efficient as possible, so.
And in fact, for the last 20 years, or maybe not 20 years, but for the last couple of years, we've trained those individuals and we've worked with them in the past, right? The ones that aren't parents, the ones that aren't employees, and don't have children, and we've worked with them, have we not?
That's true. They have been trained.
Okay. My concern is, about a year ago, I got a call from an individual that belongs to this organization, or one of these organizations. In fact, I still have the text message that they were being basically targeted because of their political speech, I guess. And when I went back and, well, when this policy came up about 2 weeks ago, it kind of triggered my memory there, and I went back and I found the text message that this individual had sent me regarding asking if there was a policy that would limit them from serving on the board. And I think I inquired with the administration, and there wasn't any policy in place a year ago, and it was right about the election times, and this individual was very vocal regarding the elections. And then after this came up, I went back and I inquired of this person, you know, where was this coming from? And we were basically told that they were told by administration that you had called inquiring, Dr. Gonzalez had called inquiring why this individual was still involved, if they didn't have kids in the district, and he was basically told, you need to keep your mouth shut. You know, I don't think that we need to be dictating how people get involved or whatever their political affiliations are with the board or elections. It's not our place to be telling them anything of the sort. I'm very disappointed to hear those type of things. You know, it happened a few years ago, and here we are with the same type of, from what I'm hearing from these individuals, is the same type of political retaliation. It disgusts me that that still goes on. And it disgusts me that you have probably staff that are afraid to speak up because they saw what happened last time, and they're seeing it go on still. I'm very disappointed to hear those type of things going on.
Well, I'm equally as disappointed because that conversation didn't happen. So as far as what you heard or a call I made, that is absolutely false. So I'm equally disappointed.
Is that it, Mr. Plaza?
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Initially, when this came up, and I'll probably address you, Dr. Gonzalez, or to, I thought this was just to kind of encourage more help from booster clubs and being involved in boosters. I kind of saw the argument on that because I've been involved in some boosters where some of the kids graduated and the parents are still involved and want to be president again and what have you. So I thought, okay, it's not bad, let new blood come in and what have you. That's pretty much it. I mean, it has been just to allow, you know, other people an opportunity. I think one of the consequences was the band booster. I hadn't thought about it, you know, and you've had the same leadership. So, you know, I'm kind of having second thoughts about it myself too, just because of what you said, Mr. Vela. You know, as a trustee, some of us don't have kids, and I get that. I guess though, you know, and my concern though is, and without relaying too much information, and if I go out of my lane as far as the district, please reel me back in, Mr. Crane. But in regards to audits, which have come up, we've had some issues with booster clubs and missing funds and not complying with routine audits to turn in a request. And if I'm speaking out of line, is that a pretty accurate statement? There's been a couple.
I don't.
Who's in charge of, well, we are. I know that to be the case. So I thought this would be a good safeguard. Not targeted to anybody. But if we're having issues with this, then I'm open to, okay, let's look at the policy again, and let's put some teeth behind it. If a booster club does not comply with the request from the school district to turn in their audits or have the right paperwork, then at that time, I think they forfeit the right to, you know, as whoever that officer's, you know, ship is, because we want to make sure that anybody involved in the school district is complying. So, I think from my perspective, I don't want to rush into anything, so I like to take a step back, because I look for this, and I couldn't find any of the paperwork to see, you know, what exact language is. So I like to maybe, I'll probably take my second back at this point, and, you know, give us a chance to look at it again, and I want to see in the policy if I can find some teeth in it and take it from a different perspective. If the PTOs.
Just real quick, for the record, it was shared on.
It's not on mine.
It's on SharePoint.
The
It's on
one that
SharePoint.
I have is, it doesn't address this, it addresses something else. It addresses donations, but it's not the same one that you showed us last time for the changes.
And SharePoint doesn't have the blue, it only has the black
It doesn't
ink,
have the blue part.
which
right
is what
here.
we're discussing.
This part right here.
Right, it didn't have the blue.
It's not showing for some strange reason.
Yeah.
It's showing this.
I think, yeah, and those are my comments. I know Sam and Tony and Mr. Suarez haven't had an opportunity to speak, but I think at this point, I'd like to take a step back and look at the policy again.
Are you withdrawing your motion?
The second, yes.
So then there's no more discussion, the motion fails.
We'll have to accept him.
Well, no, I'll keep it on the table to let comments, and then I'll probably, go ahead.
Mr. Saldivar?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Okay, because I was at the on mute. Is the second been taken back?
No, sir.
I kept it on there so you can talk about it.
Well, you know, I apologize for not being able to be there. I think it has a different flavor when you're present.
Unfortunately, my wife had surgery today, and it took longer to get her home than we expected, so, but I thought it important with the issues later on in the meeting to be on this meeting. I don't know what's being referenced to by trustee Espada, so I'm kind of taken aback in that regard. I understood that, in accordance with GE Legal, that the superintendent was referring to organizations that are parent-teacher organizations. And in that one, it talks about that the board shall cooperate in the establishment of ongoing operations of at least 1% of parent-teacher organizations at each campus of the district to promote parental involvement in school activities. And this is under the Education Code 26.001E. Which I looked at, and I'm not going to belabor that. I'm sure we all have access to it and have read it from time to time. The idea of a booster club is to provide, the community an opportunity to help enrich school participation in extracurricular activities. But the fundraising role of the booster clubs is paramount and particularly crucial in today's economic climate. But there must be a positive, direct communication, in my mind, on areas such as this that has created possible misunderstandings and possible issues in the past, and maybe still ongoing. And it's more important, in my mind, that the superintendent be kept informed on all activities. I'd be interested in knowing from the superintendent, what was the genesis of this. But I do know that in the last several meetings, including the last one, there was a lot of discussion and concern regarding the bookkeeping and fund administration, putting the process to obtain superintendent's approval prior to raising or spending the funds, especially as it pertains to district property, which is under the purview of the Board of Trustees, and in many cases could add additional costs to the maintenance and operation of the district, or in fact put the district in inequity situation, which was expressed by several trustees at the last several meetings when that has occurred. So I'd be interested in how that would be addressed if we were to do this. The other is that the school administration, in my mind, should be apprising the booster club of all school activities. And then more importantly, that the booster clubs themselves apprise the administration, specifically the superintendent and designee of all club activities, and outline their plans of action as they move forward for the coming year and how they're going to raise the funds and for what particular purpose that will be. So again, there's a communication, which I think is the key issue that may have occurred here, of clear activities and thought process with all stakeholders as we move forward. And those are just a few of my thoughts. I do know that since I got on the board, 12 years ago, this was an area, and I really appreciate the prior board at that time, the board president in particular, that invited me, even though I wasn't on the audit committee at that time, and I'm not at this time, I'm not on the audit committee, to attend and participate. And at that time, the internal auditor, no longer with the district, but a couple auditors back, pointed out that these issues were very concerning and made some suggestions similar to what we're discussing here tonight. And at that time, it was because there was funds in the neighborhood of $1.2 to $1.5 million in boosters and PTOs and PTAs. And again, going back to what I'm interested in is making sure that children have the necessary tools and support and the resources. And how that may be and how that mechanism, I don't know if this addresses that. So I'd be kind of interested in what the superintendent has in that regard, but more importantly, are you planning to do the regulations to address all these concerns that is kind of, coming to the board to the point, I think at the last meeting, I know many of us, even though some of us that just spoke, were very, very, adamant about the processes that must be in place as we engage and interact with organizations attached to the district. I am real pleased, though, that while it's in the purview of the administration to bring forth any concerns, including recommending to the board to take any action on the board, I'm glad we're not there, but I do think that to keep us from ever getting there, we really need to have an understanding of what everybody's role is. And for some of us, it may be, doing different things, such as the Alumni Association, which the district is really trying to build up. And some of us that have moved on, or, maybe that's our role that we have. Anyway, I kind of, those are kind of just general thoughts and ones that I think, but again, the purview of administering what is occurring with boosters, what is occurring with University Interscholastic League, what is occurring within the various organizations falls within the purview and the management of the district, not the Board of Trustees, but with the superintendent of schools. And you're making this recommendation. So if you could share with me some of your thoughts in those regards and how we could make this stronger moving forward, and how this fits in making us a stronger, cohesive, where everybody understands, everybody's doing their role, whether it's a volunteer, whether it's serving as an officer, whether it's donating funds, which we're seeing more and more funds being donated from businesses and organizations to the district than ever before. Many of it going to NDS, some of it going directly to the district. So I would hate for us to get in a situation where that, is derailed or moved away, because some of the comments I received kind of lead that, actually state that this funds could disappear. So, those are some of the general thoughts, so thank you for your time.
Just a clarification, I'm sorry, from Steve. Steve, this is second reading. So if, for example, on the policy, I don't think there's anything in the policy, and I'm trying to look for it right now, but the blue's not on there, so correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't have anything to, in regards to, if a booster, PTA, whoever, doesn't want to comply and turn in the paperwork on the requested audit, that there's no language or no attendant consequence. So let's say I want to propose that. Then do we go back to the first reading?
No, you'd still say at second reading, you just take no action on second reading, make your revisions you want to now, and then you can bring it back at a future meeting after it's been cleared through TASB.
Okay.
If I can interrupt, we already have policy and regulations and exhibits that already address that. We already have all that in place.
What does it say, though, specifically? If someone doesn't turn in paperwork, though?
I mean, it addresses it, and there is a chain of command, and there is consequences. Whether they're enforced or not.
That's what I'm looking at. And what are the consequences, though? Do we know?
Yes, if I may, per policy GE local, the last paragraph, upon recommendation from the superintendent, the board may cease to recognize and may withdraw affiliation with any booster organization that, in the opinion of the board, does not adhere to applicable policies and administrative regulations, In the event of such board action, any privileges afforded to the organization as a district affiliated organization shall cease. So if they fail to follow the policies.
And I don't want the organization to cease just because of some actions of the current board. I would prefer to change that and say that current board, goes away because they didn't comply with the request. The organization should stay, in my opinion. See, that's what I want to look at. So, again, I'm going to go to my comment. I need a little bit more time to look at this and submit some more information, because I think we're all probably want the same thing, which is accountability. There's a couple ways of getting to it, and I think I want to put a little bit more teeth into that. I'm sorry, I'm done.
Mr. Vela?
A little historical comment. In the past, we did not have the control over booster clubs and PTAs that we have today. I remember complete restructuring, I want to say 2013, more or less, when we did a complete restructuring of all of the boards and their accounting practices, how everything had to come through central office, am I right?
Right.
And that cleared up most of the, or all of the issues that were being addressed at that point in time. That's number one. Number two, there's been comments made tonight that that a non-parent may not follow the rules as well as a parent in an officer situation. I don't believe that to be true. Actually, quite the contrary. If there's been a non-parent who's been serving on that board for a period of time, they may know the rules better than a new parent coming in, a feather in their cap. And to say that a non-parent would be more apt to make a mistake, I don't believe that's a true statement either. I do believe in new blood, and if that's the case in these club membership boards or whatever, then let the members vote for new officers. It's that simple. People get reelected because they're doing good jobs. People get reelected because they know what they're doing. People get reelected because they carry forward intellectual capacity, and they are successful in what they do. I understand a few years ago, there was a band situation where the officers did not stand in place. The band boosters lost a lot of money. They didn't make the normal amount of money that they normally make. So to address all of the issues, a parent or non-parent can do as good a job or as bad a job. One doesn't qualify you or disqualify you. New blood, fine. New blood, then let the club vote in a new officer. It's that simple. Because there's a lot to be said about intellectual capacity. And maybe that's why I'm here, I don't know. But anyway, enough said.
When I got reelected, you didn't say all those things about me, though, sir.
But you were the incumbent. You were the incumbent.
No one else knows that joke but us.
Yeah.
You're up, Tony.
If I may, you know, we discussed this 2 weeks ago. We've been hit by emails and correspondence, and I wanted to find out how many groups this would change. How many different groups would be affected by this? As of my count, as of 10 minutes ago, it was 90 different groups. I can name them all, but I don't think we have that much time. So of 90 groups, the only one that we are hearing from is one in particular. And when I asked for a copy of the Fine Arts Booster Club list, this group isn't even on here. So my concern is, are they running rogue? Is this something that we need to know about? Several people emailed me. Only one person responded to an email because I responded back looking for information. And the one person that responded back eventually attacked me for asking for information. I'm up here to make an informed decision. I represent those people that live in the McAllen School District, and I want to talk to them. And if we can do it civilly, great. And if we can't do it civilly, then I'm going to shut you down and I will have to get my information from elsewhere. So that's what I did. So of 90 different groups, there is only one group that is contesting this move. There is one organization that is making this move. So that led me to say, okay, has this organization had an audit process? And when I did see the audit request, there was 3 observations that all deal financially. And that concerns me. That concerns me because there's an effort here to stop, and I agree with Mr. Vela 100% on the election. If you don't like what somebody's doing, you elect them out. And I went through 7 months of trial to keep my spot. So I know what it's like. For the allegation to come up that this is something politically, if you can prove it, I'd like to see it. And we can go to closed session.
Let's go. I don't have a problem with it.
Mr. Crane?
I gotta figure out how you get into closed session.
We can't go into closed session, right? It's not posted.
You can just go ahead and finish your statement. and we'll-
I don't understand why it is 89 other groups are perfectly fine with this, and one group is against it. When at 5 o'clock today, during open comment, we had one parent come up and say that we need to better supervise these groups. We need to better keep an eye on these organizations, because as of 8 months ago, she is yet to be able to raise a penny for her school. And now we're trying to say, well, everybody else except A is immune from this. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, then it's not shame on them, it's shame on us.
Then let's take the shame.
One more comment.
Sure.
I don't have a problem with auditing. I don't have a problem with any of that. I don't have a problem with any of the rules in place. What I do have a problem is the purpose that this is being set up for. And I don't To me, I don't believe that it's the auditing purposes. If you have an individual who's not a parent, not an employee, doesn't have a vested interest, and they violate those rules, they break the law, if they live in Hidalgo County, or if they broke the law here in Hidalgo County, law enforcement has every authority to take action on them, whether they're an employee, whether they're a parent, or whether they live outside the district. Law enforcement has every authority to take action against them. So whether it's for auditing purposes, I don't buy it. I mean, if you want to go back there, I don't have a problem showing you anything I have.
The good thing about being 7 of us here is that we all have different opinions. And every single one is respected. And I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but there's some issues here that I think have not been talked about that I would like to discuss. I was a PTO member a couple years back before I served on the board. And when I got my books from the previous PTO member, I didn't want to touch them. Because the bank statements said ATM withdrawal, ATM withdrawal, ATM withdrawal, and they wanted me to take over this bank account. At no time did I accuse this person that decided to serve their community, but I know that I didn't want to get my hands dirty. And I didn't want something to come back to me. And I remember calling a certain board member who just a couple of days ago called me about a same issue, and I asked her, who governs this? And there was no answer. And so I took it upon myself to be the board president, or the PTO president, and I told myself, and I told the other 4 people that were in that room, I don't want to sign checks. So why don't we let the vice president and the treasurer sign checks, so you distribute the power, and it's not all about one person. I shouldn't have done that, because there's no bylaws that state that I should do that. But again, who governs me? So then the other day, I had breakfast with Ms. Castro for 2 hours, and I listened to her concerns. And it came back, at the end of the day, was the same thing. There's no governing. And so this is what everyone here has to understand. Anytime you change a policy or a rule, or anytime any of us here make a decision, somebody's going to be upset, no matter what decision it is. Okay? But we're elected by the people to do what's in the best interest of this, and that is children first. So let me talk about some issues that concern me, that have not been brought up by anyone. Let's talk about safety. According to our current policy, anyone, not just an alumni, anyone can be a part of any organization, any of the 200 organizations that we have, and no questions can be asked, because we have no policy that states that. Now, there is true, we could ask questions and not vote them in, but remember, this policy doesn't restrict anyone from volunteering. So if it is in your heart to do what's in the best interest for kids, you don't need a title, my opinion. The second thing that I learned when I was a PTO president is, what am I going to do when my daughter goes to middle school, and are these people going to be ready to take over? And so I served for 2 years, but the second year I was there, I did nothing. I let the first grade and second grade parents take over PTO so that you always had new ideas. I can tell you now, and I won't name the school, but the PTO where I was at now is in much better hands with the people that are running it now than it was with me. But I take credit for that, because I let other people have different ideas. The third issue is I think this is best practice. I think that the best practice is to allow parents that have an integral interest in here to run the organization. It does not mean that once Mr. Vela is not on the board, he's not going to contribute time and dedication. Because just the other day, Mrs. DeShazo called me and asked me for some questions about certain organizations that she's trying to help. You think she's going to stop doing that because we would put this policy in place? So I have a couple of questions for Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, if this policy is in place, does it prevent anybody from volunteering?
No, sir.
Did you call or did TASB give you any information about surrounding districts on how they do things? And is this best practice?
Actually, when I talked to TASB, when we spent a lot of time on the phone with Kathy London, there are several local districts, 4 or 5 come to mind, that have a very brief GE local. And she said when they come down here for the spring audit, that she'll look at this GE local along with other policies and recommend some of this stuff may want to be transferred over to an administrative regulation.
Okay. I will tell you that I contacted 3 surrounding districts, and it is their best practice. Now, I understand the concerns of some band parents, and we're targeting them because those are the emails that we've gotten. And I've gotten some phone calls from others who believe that are in band that it is a good policy, but their question was, does that mean tomorrow we have to switch? Because I think the main concern is that the way it's been governed, they're afraid that tomorrow it's just going to drop off if those members are no longer there. Number one, I don't think McAllen ISD would allow that to happen. I don't think our fine arts director would allow that to happen. And I certainly do not believe that any member of our band boosters would allow that to happen. I think everyone here is capable of doing what's in the best interest for the kids. Now, there are some things that I think that were said today that perhaps Mr. Alvarado would want to table this to make sure that it was done right and that everybody got the policy. To me, the policy has not changed, but if the board wishes to vote on this at a later time or table it so that everybody can get the accurate information, I don't have a problem with that.
I want to table it only because I want to see language if I can, sir. To include that when a booster, whoever, does not comply with a request from the audit, from the principal of that school, the leader, then, whoever from the district's requesting it, if they don't comply within a reasonable amount of time, and we can define reasonable, 2, 3, 4 months, whatever. I want to give them plenty of time. If they don't comply, then our policy needs to be specific because it says just come back to the board. But what action can we take? So I'd like to say, if they don't comply within a reasonable time, bring it to the board, and then we dissolve that leadership and allow that organization to continue, but they get another one. That's all I'm looking for. And because I've seen too many of this where they don't comply and they kind of go away and they come back again the following year. So that's my main thing on this. I don't see it on here, so I want a little bit more time to look at it to see if we can implement it.
So you're making a motion to table the?
No, I just withdraw. I just withdraw.
For no action.
For no action.
Before you withdraw,
Yes.
can I say something?
Absolutely.
Trustee Suarez, as to your comment on auditing PTOs, I've been shut out of audit for 3 years, but when I was president back when I was involved in audit, every audit that showed bad, that reflected badly of the organization that we were auditing had to do with district employees and parents.
Right.
And the PTO that you were speaking about was a district employee who was absconding with funds. I've been in the PTO where a district employee absconded with funds and a parent absconded with funds. So I think that the audit has nothing to do with I think we're so out of our lane in that. GE Local has nothing to do with audit. We now, because of all those bad things that happened back in the day, we now, as Trustee Vela said, we now have systems in place that we have audits going on continuously. The superintendent addresses those immediately. Those people are kicked out of the organizations. They are, to Trustee Esparza's, they are dealt with through law enforcement, and we don't hear about it again because it goes through that channel. I think we are so off base. This is strictly about membership. And as to if it was a TASB update, it was not a TASB update. TASB, most people that have GE Local, they do not go into membership. They have a 1 paragraph. This is 2 pages. The way that it was before is we said that all residents who meet criteria detailed in the organization's guidelines shall be eligible for membership in the organization. I can't tell you how strongly I feel that we have no business micromanaging how other organizations create their bylaws. As a person who has spent many, many hours writing bylaws for different organizations, we take into account, great account, as to who can sign checks. And most organizations that I'm on, you need 2 signatures to sign a check. It's never the president that signs a check. It's always the treasurer, and it goes through a committee and a committee and a committee and a committee. There's always a chain of commands. If the organization has problems in the organization, they need to fix it. It's not for us to fix it. We are just happy that you're helping us. We're happy that you're donating funds to us. When you donate those funds, I hope they're not creating any inequities in our programs, because then that becomes a problem for us. But I don't think that we have any business talking about the audit section of it when I think it takes the focus away when this is about membership, and I don't think we have any business dictating who can and cannot participate in an organization.
Debbie, can I ask a question, just because this is the place to do it, right? I don't want to call you after the meeting or whatever. Just to my point about if a PTO or booster does not comply with requests for an audit or what have you, are you okay with stronger language to give us a little bit more teeth?
Oh, yeah, and
Okay.
that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the regulations aspect, yeah.
Yeah, the whole point, and I think that we're all in there without putting a personal, tack to it, is that we need stronger regulations. And you might be right, who are we to govern them? The problem is that every single parent that calls, they call a board member. And so my answer is not going to be, sorry, I don't have any jurisdiction, I'm not going to do anything about it. I think you're right. Just like we need equity, we need a firm policy that every PTO understands in our district how it's going to be done. If you expect a principal to govern 42 PTOs and organizations and clubs in a high school, pipe dream. It's not going to happen. And so best practice, I think, is to have a uniform policy. I think this strengthens our policy. If there's some concerns, I have no problem taking no action on this, getting together. And if certain organizations, if we want to invite certain organizations to come in and see, like Ms. Ortega did with me, and tell me what her opinion was, then I think all of us need to sit down with different organizations and bring your opinions to us. I don't think that, it should be done at a board meeting. I think it should be done before then, when you have time to meet with these people and see their concerns, my opinion. But like I said, we can beat a dead horse. I think the consensus right now is to take no action on the board. You're withdrawing your motion, am I
Yes,
correct?
and we have a workshop on the 24th, so if we need some time there, I'd recommend that we add it to that. I know it's a budget workshop, but
Well, we can call it a PTO budget workshop. Yes. Mr. Saldiva?
Again, I think there's some misstatements being made, and that's okay, we'll cover that at a later time. Clearly, when Ms. London's with us, she'll explain the roles that we have. The audits have a purview and are important, and I'm not so sure for purposes of what we're discussing in this particular vein, it does. However, this board is latest clearly concerned and has been concerned for a long period of time, as it was stated by several board members, that the bookkeeping and fund administration, including the process to obtain the superintendent's approval prior to raising or spending the funds. That whether we have any policy or regulation, that still obviously is not happening. And that's a big part of the concerns, whether it comes out on the normal bookkeeping or a specific purchase and of an item not going through the procurement process within the district, which is another, regulation and also statutory requirement, which we're not following. So I think it really comes down to the concern I continue to have is that even if we put this in policy, how are we going to enforce it? How are we even going to follow it? If we're not all in agreement, as Mr. Vela said, as adults, that we're going to follow the rules, the policy, the statute, the guidelines, whatever the case may be. The last point is that all of these organizations that we've been talking about are under the purview of the University Interscholastic League, which clearly states that the role of the superintendent and of the member schools make all the rules and determine policies regarding penalties to the school district personnel, and student participation. The superintendent is solely responsible for the entire UIL program. All school activities, organizations, including the boosters, events, and personnel are under the jurisdiction of the superintendent. Booster clubs must recognize this authority and work within the framework prescribed by the school administration. If anything this board has done or not done is support the superintendent and guide him to come up with the rules and regulations necessary, and if that means redoing some of the policies, including GE, and maybe, as Ms. London
Okay?
Okay. With that being said, you withdrawing your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, the motion's been withdrawn. Next item, we have 16.
Are we
Point of
going to try
order.
to bring it on the 24th?
A motion was made, you withdrew the second, therefore it now dies.
I would do it for,
It dies for lack of a second, so
It
there's
dies,
no motion.
so there's, right, so
you
it's
drop
done, it didn't
yeah,
pass,
but
we don't talk about it
we
again.
can still bring it back at another point.
Dies.
No, it dies.
No, actually, point of order, it can come up at a later date.
Right.
It
If the
dies.
board puts it on the agenda.
It dies for
It dies.
It dies
only
for today, for right
It
now,
dies for today.
Danny, but I can bring it back on the
Take no
24th.
action, is what we're doing.
Administration, we have to bring it back.
Right.
Frank
Yeah.
can clear that up.
Yeah, no,
That's fine.
we're saying the same thing. It dies for today, Sam. We're all in agreement. It dies for today.
Thank you. Next item is
So we want
16-1C, approve the award for, what was the next item?
I'm on 16C1, and then C2, then C3. I moved those three items up next.
Okay. 16C1, approval award for bid number 2020-182, sale of real estate property. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The district solicited bids for the sale of real property, and administration is recommending action on this item.
Move to approve?
Can I get a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
We got a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Arriaga, if you want to.
Excuse me, Mr. President, I didn't hear which item it was. I'm sorry.
16C1. Mr. Arriaga, if you would.
Got it, thank you.
Before trustee Esparza asks a question, can I ask where in our SharePoint the appraisal is?
Yes, it's in board now. And it's a folder called,
Appraisals.
did I talk appraisals, property appraisals? Yes, it's in board now,
Yes.
folder called property appraisals.
On the sale of Awesome, I see the amount is probably, well, I probably going to the district, or Mr. Crane, can we have a clause in there? My concern is where the students walk to Fossum, they use that neighborhood, that vacant lot right now, so they come homes. I'd like to see if the developer would be open to putting a sidewalk from, there's a middle, to allow the kids to walk. Because if they close it off, they're gonna have to walk all the way around on Trenton Road or Ware. So that's the only access they have, so they use that property. So I think it's probably going to, I don't know who that goes to,
Well,
but,
I can tell you one problem, that would have to be agreed to by the responder to that proposal.
okay,
Because when the proposal went out, that was not a condition of the sale.
okay.
So they would have to agree to that. Right now, they've agreed to what
Just
we've
to buy it, okay.
advertised. So that'd
So
have to be
the
something.
only recourse I have is just vote no if I wanted to have that in there, okay.
That are the only other possibilities. I don't know what the city's gonna require when this property is developed. The city may require sidewalks along the perimeter streets.
Yeah, they will, but what I'm saying is, all the students who walk to Fossum come down 33rd Street, Yellowhammer, and they walk through, there's a gate there. Nobody walks down Trenton Road or Ware. So by now selling this, there's no access for them at all.
But
So-
looking at the photo, the only access to this area is on Yellowhammer.
Right, and what I thought, I had mentioned that, maybe it was just a dream, or maybe I mentioned some way time ago, is asking the developer, there's a little fence there right in the middle of the property of Fossum with the gate, just extending that out and letting them walk through the homes or what have you, but again, somebody buying that home might not want those kids walking through that. So it's kind of complicated, I gotta think about it, it's just more of a safety issue concern, but.
It may also be a liability for the new property owner.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking, because they do take a shortcut on one of the homes and they walk through the yard and get
Yeah, I will say that I'm familiar with that area, and I think what it serves now, it's nothing but a shortcut
That's all it
for
is,
them
you're
to do. So I think to hamper or to detain a sale so that kids don't shortcut home is probably not in the best interest of the district. I understand what
Yeah,
you're
I
saying,
understand.
because, but we don't know what the developer intends, and perhaps one of the luxuries of living in that community is that there will be access, and the developer might take that into consideration, that there's easy access to the school, so he might do it without us having to put the restriction.
And you know what, Mr. Suarez, I might not be able to go home because my neighbors are probably saying, be quiet, Mr. Alvarado, and let them.
Trustee
go around."
Alvarado,
But
I
that's usually the
believe,
case anyways, Mr. Alvarado.
sorry to interrupt, I believe that the developer is actually in the room if you want to ask a question. Are we allowed?
No.
Mr. Crane?
Not
Well,
unless the presiding officer recognizes.
If I recognize him, he can. But I don't think we're there yet.
No, we're not there yet.
So
It's,
let me-
it's, I'm good. It was just a concern, so. Anyway, I seconded, I'm okay.
Hi, Mr. Arriaga. So in 2010, it was appraised at $515,000, and then I see right now the new appraisal comes in 2019 at $380,000. That shocks me, because in 2010, that Ware Road was a little tiny two-lane road. You didn't have the now it's a massive thoroughfare going through. Now you have drainage. You have that whole subdivision there. Can you explain why it's dropped in value so much? I was shocked.
Good question. I'm not an appraiser. I was informed about an hour before the meeting that this was the case. We had an old appraisal at a higher price. I can assure you that the appraiser, and I called the appraiser and I asked him what happened. And he told me the same thing that I told everybody else they called. The market changes. There are cycles. Things happen. You're going to find out that some prices went up, some prices went down. Everything, if you had property before 2010, it was actually higher than it was afterwards because all the crises that we had,
Yeah, the recession.
financing, et cetera. And also keep in mind, one of the aspects that we found in trying to help the school find a user versus an investor, someone who's going to do something to the property, is the bank is going to have to finance it. You need an appraisal that's current, at least within 6 months. And old appraisal doesn't mean much. You're going to find out that some appraisals are going to be, appraisals are going to be more than they were in 2010, but many are going to be less.
So I found property that sold last year in the same area, 6 acres, and it sold at $65,000 an acre also. What I'm trying to find on here, we didn't get this earlier, so I couldn't do my research, so I apologize. What is this broken down by the acre? If $380,000 is for the whole tract, what is that selling as an acre?
Good question. The appraiser is the only one that can answer that. Keep in mind that we can second guess and find stuff that's happened that the appraisers cannot find. But I can assure you, if we had a second opinion, let's say we decide to get somebody else to look at it, same comparables. And you're gonna, I think it's come out to, I don't have a price per square foot, but the appraisal was $380,000. Now, one good thing is, keep in mind that market value dictates what people are gonna pay, not so much the appraisal, or not so much what we think. The offer for this one is higher than the appraisal price. And when I looked at the appraiser that was sent to me this afternoon, it's only about $40,000, $50,000 difference from the price that was offered to you and what the appraisal was in 2010.
Well, when I looked up in the Hidalgo County Tax Assessor Collector, and I know he's always off, it's appraised at $713,000. So, I mean, you have $713,000 according to tax payrolls as of today. You have an old appraisal from 2010 for $500, and now we have an appraisal that we did right now because we want to sell the property. It comes in so low. I would like to see it go back out for a second appraisal. I wonder if it's because it's an agriculture open field, and I wonder if, can you get it zoned? I know the zoning depends on, you know, the price is different for different zones. Can you change the zoning without a subdivision plat and all that? No, right? You'd have to have all that.
Very difficult. Now, great observation, and you probably see it in your taxes. What the appraisal district says a property's worth and what you really know it's going to be worth when you pay your taxes, two different things. When you have land that's never been taxed before, and we haven't, so there's no one going to appraisal district, and it goes up every year because there's no one is there to say, wait a minute, you're up going too fast. So what happened is your properties, all your properties that any institution that doesn't pay taxes has is way above what the real value is according to the appraisal district. So don't take that into account, two different numbers.
Right.
And if you go, all the properties that you have and you're selling, the appraisal district has way, the property's worth a lot more. And the reason for that is no one is there keeping an eye on it because you don't have to pay taxes on that.
Right. Well, I know in compliancy, we're okay because it's been appraised, you know, TEC code says we have to have an appraisal within 180 days. So it says we have to put it out for bid, we put it out for bid. This comes in over what's appraised value, so I know we're fine to do it, but I just don't think that the appraisal is right. I would like to take it back for a second appraisal, but I will yield the floor.
I have a question. What is the sake of, what does an appraisal cost the district?
Don't know.
We know what it costs us?
It's minimal.
You negotiate your own price.
Okay.
2,000, 3,000.
Yeah, it's
$3,000.
minimal.
Okay. I think when we had previously talked to the previous representative that we had, our real estate representative, I had asked the question, what were some of the obstacles with this land? And one of them was that there was only one entranceway to the land, and that there was no access to Ware Road. Is that still the?
It's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of risk that the developers has to take. What I'm impressed with, keep in mind, it's not the appraisal, it's the price that you got to purchase. The price you got to purchase is way above the appraisal price, because the appraisal is just a minimum. You're gonna find out some people are gonna bid out higher because there might be demand, so they're gonna bid lower because they might not be able to do something with it. So just because you have a piece of property and all the utilities are there, doesn't mean that you solve all the bureaucracy that it has to take to go to City Hall and get permission to develop 40 lots, to sell houses at $200,000 per house. The value of the property goes up with property, and you get taxes you don't have right now.
You know, to that point, though, I'm sorry, to that point, is the sale contingent on if they get that zoning, or they're buying it regardless of if it stays AO?
No, it's no
They're
contention.
buying it
As
Okay.
is. They
Okay,
take-
that's good.
Because there's another property we know that they're buying as is, and they've been informed. And if for some reason they cannot do something with it, it's their problem, they gotta resell it.
Sorry.
So I guess the second part of my question is in your opinion, if and when we do get a second appraisal, how much of a difference can that make?
Zero.
If I can ask another question, how many homes are anticipated being built?
I figure 8 acres, 40 lots,
So
That'd be nice.
potentially to add to our,
School,
tax base.
but yeah, it'd be awesome.
okay.
Can we put a restriction that they have to have like 20 kids in each home in order to?
And we have restrictions on everyone that you cannot build a school on that, so that for sure we have.
Yeah, open enrollment.
I started joking around after 7:15.
I think we have a motion, right? We have a second.
Any other questions, Mr. Vela?
Thank you, no.
Mr. Esparza?
I'm good.
See, Mr. Saldivar?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Next item is 16C2. Approval award for bid number 2020-183, sell the property on Austin. Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The district solicited bids for sale of real property, and administration is recommending action on this item.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion?
Okay, give me a second to look, because it just loaded.
We're going to give trustee Alizada a second. Anybody else have a question about? Mr. Arriaga, while she's looking for her information, how long has this property in Austin been up for sale?
The surveys were completed in December.
Okay.
And the appraisals were not complete to pass that, because you need the survey for the appraisals done.
No,
3 weeks, 4 weeks?
And just normal practice, how do you list the property?
Okay. Our number one selling tool is the sign. We actually have 2 networks that we use, the CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Member, which is 36,000 people that have investors, and the SIOR, Society of Industrial and Office Real Estate Brokers. Keep in mind, our properties are very unique. It's not something like put in MLS. MLS is a great tool for homes. It is not a great tool when you have to find users for property and maximize the value. The property code, local code, government code 272.01 dictates that we need to do certain steps, and I think we've done all of that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Alizada?
So in 2010, it was appraised at $270,000, and it increased in 2020 to 360,000. Just, I'm furthering my point as to why, I don't understand why the other one didn't increase, because the other one has infrastructure there that this one doesn't. But the appraisal came in at 360, and this offer is above appraisal at 365. So it meets all of our requirements. We posted it, we put it out for bid, the appraisal's within 180 days, so I'm fine.
I thought you were gonna ask for another appraisal.
No, but the other one is so far off, hundreds of thousands, so.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, motion passes 7-0. Next is 16C3, approval of award for bid number 2020-185, sale of property on Thigpen. Please
move
give
to
me a
approve.
motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Any discussion? Debbie?
Hold on.
Hit it.
Let me just download it. Is it Thigpen Gym or is it Thigpen Main?
Maine.
Both
May.
combined.
Both combined,
The whole shebang.
Whole thing.
the whole thing.
My God.
So when you add them up,
What did they
that's
plan
what
for
totals the 925. So one is for 720, the other one's for 205.
720 and the other's 205.
Mhm.
And what they're trying to purchase right now is what?
The whole thing.
And what's the offering? So 720, 205, and 925 is the total?
Mhm.
And what's the offer?
695.
Well, that's not under appraised value, and it went out for bid, and it has to be appraised value, so why are we even discussing it?
Mr. Crane?
No. There's two parts to the statute. If you go out for bid, we did an appraisal only to get an idea what the property's worth. If there's some exceptions under 272-001, I believe it's B, which a few of them are narrow strips of land. When you're buying or selling from another local governmental entity, it has to be at or above appraised value. If you go out for bid or auction, it does not have to equal appraised value. And I believe Mr. Arriaga can explain why the bid came in lower.
If I could interrupt, when we sold the Jackson property, the reason that we had to keep bringing it back was because it was posted, we went out for bid, but they didn't meet the appraised value, so we had to go out and get it reappraised, and they had to make sure, actually, hold on. The motion for that was subject to the receipt and an appraisal stating that the purchase price as stated in the sales contract equals or exceeds the appraised value. So back then, we were following section 45.082 of the TEC, and we were following section that you're talking about, 272.001, and it very clearly states that the fair market value is determined by an appraisal obtained, I mean, I don't have to read it to you, you obviously know what it says.
And that applies to, you're reading out subdivision B.
Right,
Reading out 272-001B.
right.
And that is with another local governmental entity if you're doing the transaction with them.
But this isn't another local government
Right,
entity.
and what I'm saying is, under that, you do not have to meet the appraised value for the sale to be valid.
It says it doesn't, it's more of may, it doesn't say shall, it says may. I'm not comfortable with that. It shall meet the appraised value. I don't think we should even be touching this. I mean, I think that
Now,
that's,
if you read 272.001A,
yeah,
where it says shall, it says if the property is sold under the provisions of 272.001B, I believe, B1 through 6 or B1 through 7, those are the exceptions. And it says you must sell it for least appraised value.
right, that's what I'm saying. We must sell it for at least
But that-
appraised value.
This doesn't come under 272.001B.
We're not for bids.
I'm sorry?
We're not for
Yeah, on for bids. And that
It went out for
establishes-
bids.
And that establishes the fair market value for property sold under 272.001A.
Then why did we go through all that ruckus with the Jackson property?
Well, that's hearsay. I mean,
No, it's not hearsay. We did it. We went back for an
I
appraisal.
understand, Ms. Isaac, but he's letting us know now that it's legal to do this. And I know your question's about Jackson, but
Well, I'm just saying, if it wasn't legal then, how is it legal now?
May I?
Yes.
If someone had come forward to buy this property before we had intended to put it up for sale, and said, I will give you so much money, as long as that much money was above the appraised value, we
don't
could accept their offer. If it were below, we would have to put it up for bids.
Right.
The other property I think that you're mentioning it was above appraised value, that's why we could take that offer.
Right.
And this one here, there was two bids, they both came in a little bit lower, this is the higher of the two. Even though it's below appraised value, we can by law accept their offer.
We can, but we don't have to. It
Now, you
says
can
may,
just
not
like
shall.
just like any bid, when you're trying to sell something, you can reject all bids.
I mean, we
anytime.
have an asset, we're trustees of assets of this district, and land is an asset. I mean, I think at least we sell it at appraised value.
Mr. Ortega, can you let us know why, in your opinion, you think it's going below market value?
Great question, again, Trustee Luceta. Supply and demand. You talked about Jackson Road. Keep in mind, there was a demand for that piece, and we took advantage of that. We really did. And so we got more than appraisal value, a lot more. And that's the way the market is. Remember, market value dictates what we're going to sell.
I'm sorry.
In selling a problem, a unique property, you have to look at many factors. We've had Thickman for a long time. If you had to get a property ready for sale or a property ready to build, two different things. So the person buying this property determined that there's a problem, and we all know Thickman. And I do not want to say that our horse we're selling got cancer, but we got a problem. And we found someone that really is wanting to take the property as is and has a good reason for purchasing it. And don't know if I can disclose what it's going to be used for, but I really believe that this is a great opportunity, a bird nest on the ground for you all. Someone takes a responsibility that we should have taken a long time ago, the community, and cleaned it up. And not only that, turn it into something that's going to be positive for the community.
Can I ask two follow-up questions to that? If that, what they're intending to buy it, will it generate additional taxes for revenue for us?
I spoke to the developer. He told me to tell you it's a grocery store.
Oh,
That's good, because that's a food desert. There's no nutrient-dense food over there, so that's a good.
okay. And then the second part, if whatever reason the city doesn't approve that particular purchase, or, are they still committed to demoing the school?
Absolutely. Or keep it if they want to, and use it for whatever they can to generate a profit of some sort, and you all collect the tax bases you need.
Once he owns it, he owns it, he does whatever he wants with it.
Yes, sir.
Right. I'm just trying to say, it is below value, and we know reasons why. I mean, we should recoup that here pretty soon, though, the negative, I mean, shortly in a couple of years, I would imagine, if it's a grocery store.
Not only that, the community would love you here.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think
This
it's
is a
great,
win-win for everybody.
but I'm still a no, because
Okay.
We have a motion on the floor and second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
9:25. Aye.
Okay, 6-1 it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez.
Mr. President, I'd like to move up one other item, the tax attorney is here. That would be item 3B1? 13B1. I'd like to move up item 13B1, sir.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
What are you moving on?
Oh, that's it?
13B1 tax, the tax information.
13?
New appraisal.
13B1.
I know
All
you
right.
love me.
13B1, report regarding delinquent tax collections. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Ms. Kelly Salazar from the firm Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson LLP will present the delinquent tax collection report for October 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. And this item is for information purposes only.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, President Suarez, and trustees. I'm here to present the October 1st through December 31st, 2019 second quarter report to McAllen ISD. As always, our delinquent tax collection program on behalf of the district continues to focus on two basic premises. The first is to work with individual taxpayers to collect the delinquent amounts owed, and secondly, use the tool of litigation only as a final option to collect. During this reporting period, we completed 2 demand mailings, mailing over 3,000 statements. We had over 1,100 phone calls, over 313 walk-ins to any one of our locations 4 locations in Hidalgo County, including 2 which are very convenient to the McAllen ISD taxpayers on McCall Road and on 10th Street. We had over 338 payoff requests, and we knocked on over 488 doors in this community, educating delinquent taxpayers and doing our best to get them into a payment arrangement. Regarding lawsuits filed year-to-date, we have 56. We've disposed of 59 of those. We've had 15 tax warrants in pending litigation. As of January 2020, we have 345 lawsuits representing over $1.7 million in base tax and penalty interest owed. We regularly conduct tax sales and resales. During this quarter, we completed 2 tax sales, placing 4 properties for sale. 1 of those was struck off, and 3 of those were paid prior to sale. Regarding our collection highlights, you'll note this collection period, we collected over $274,000 in base tax, over $167,000 in penalty and interest, which amounted to over $442,000 in taxes collected. Now you'll note, it appears as though there is a decline in collections. These are the amounts provided from the Hidalgo County Tax Office. And when the Hidalgo County Tax Office reports base amounts collected, they report those amounts and exclude the amounts collected by our firm but issued in refunds to individuals who successfully protest their values. And I bring that up because it's significant this second quarter, as McAllen ISD saw a 175% increase in refunds issued just during this quarter. Last quarter, there was a little over $124,000 issued in refunds. This quarter, and I say last quarter, last second quarter. This second quarter, over $218,000 issued. So we saw over $93,000 extra taken out of our base tax collections compared to last second quarter. So if you put that money in on both sides, we're actually up a little over $1,200 in work completed by our firm. We have no control over the refunds issued. That's an appraisal district compartment. So, but I thought it'd be important to mention it to the district. Looking forward to the next quarter and beyond, we will continue reviewing our pending judgments, monitoring those for possible tax sale. We will continue our bankruptcy program for the district, and we have already completed our January mailing for next quarter, and we have another one scheduled for next month. This concludes my second quarter collection report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
A quick question. So can you provide us a chart that shows where they pulled that out, those numbers that you're saying?
Yes, like which entities and the dollar amounts that were pulled?
Well, you're saying your collections are showing lower because of refunds that were given, right?
Correct.
Can you provide us a chart that shows that?
Yes, I can get that from the appraisal district. That way it's from their office.
That's
and
fine.
I can provide that. And just to also further that point, the refunds issued there will be additional refunds on the horizon. For one, I know Walmart has protested all of their values throughout the county, and this district has, I don't know how many Walmarts and Sam's. So you'll be affected in the future as well.
So these refunds are taxpayers who protested their property values? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, or companies,
Oh, okay.
entities. For instance, this quarter, the ones that were taken out, the money issued back were for Kohl's, Walmart. The taxpayer is called TCP Main Place. It's where Kirkland's is, off the expressway.
Okay.
That was one of the large ones as well.
That's in the school district? Kirkland's, where's Kirkland's?
South, on the expressway.
Oh,
The
okay,
one by the Dollar Theater.
okay. And and this was through December, from January moving forward to present, where are your numbers now?
They're looking good. We don't have the official reports from the county yet for January. We're expecting them soon.
Okay. All right, thank you. You'll get us that report, though?
Yes, I
You
can.
can email it to us?
Yes, if you give me a little time, I need to get that from the appraisal district, but I'll be happy to get that. From
Yes,
you.
email it to
Mayor's-
business
Mayor's
office, and then
Richards.
they'll send it to us.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
No more reorg? All right. With that being said, we go to 13A, the committee reports, 13A1, instructional service. Mr. Saldivar?
Yes, Mr. President. Trustee Alicea and I are members of the Committee of the Instructional Services, met with Assistant Superintendent Ibarra on Thursday, February the 6th. and we discussed 4 items in the agenda. One of them was the proclamation earlier. The other items are 15A, B, C, and D, which are on the consent agenda. And they had to deal with the college career counseling and family treatment program, approval of maximum class size for 2019-2020. There's another couple of classes that have to be done. Approval of First Amendment dealing with the career technical education health science program with the Rio Grande City Hospital, and a memorandum of understanding with McAllen School District and Tony's Playhouse Discovery Center, and also approval of memorandum of understanding between McAllen ISD and Easter Seal of the Rio Grande Valley. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. Next is the human resource briefing, trustee Forina.
Thank you, President Suarez. Trustee Aliceda and I had a chance to sit down with Mr. Miller to discuss what we would be discussing on the HR side of the building today. Obviously, our first going out of order, the update to Board Policy GE, which we've discussed already. Upcoming, we have the HR recommendations for school year 2019-2020, resignations for school year 2019-2020, and the 2019-2020 list of certified Texas Teacher Evaluation and Support System T-test appraisers. We're going to add a few more names to that. That's all I have for you, sir.
Thank you. District operations briefing, Mrs. Debbie Crane Alizeda.
That's me, as well as trustee Fulina and trustee Esparza. And we met, and most of the things we've already discussed because it's the sale of our real property. Other things are in the consent agenda. I do want to give our Assistant Superintendent of District Operations, Ms. Arely Benavides, a shout out and say thank you. Number 16C4, you will see when that comes to it, she has found us a huge cost savings that no one's ever looked at before. So I appreciate, we all appreciate you taking the initiative and finding that for us. And is it in consent? Do I need to talk about it right now, or no? No, it's not in consent, so we'll talk about it when we get there. And the one thing that is in consent, though, that's actually interesting is, well, they're all interesting, but number 15I, the approval of interlocal cooperation agreement between the County of Hidalgo and McAllen Independent School District. That's really interesting. It's not for hurricane evacuations. It's for the health department. It's where, you know, if you need to get a vaccine or something like that. Oh, I see a or nurse Adalia here. That's actually very interesting. I know it's in consent. We don't need to pull it out. It's all easy breezy, but I just thought that was very interesting. That is our report.
Thank you. The next is the business operation briefing, Mr. Danny Vela. He stepped out. So we will now go to item 13B2, report regarding the monthly financials and quarterly investment. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Mrs. Adele Felix will present the monthly financials and quarterly investment report for December 2019, and this item is for information purposes only. Ms. Felix.
Thank you. For the month of December 2019, we have year-to-date revenues of $125,474,055 and year-to-date expenditures of $121,598,812, reflecting revenues over expenditures of $3,875,243. Moving on to the investment report, we are presenting a quarterly report from October 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. We had beginning market value. Beginning market value of $110,402,289 and ending market value of $123,219,157, and an average yield to maturity of 1.825%. Our interest earnings for the fiscal year so far are $1,108,060.41. Now, this is the quarterly report. We did include the monthly investment report for your reference as an attached file, but of course it's incorporated in the quarterly report. That's all I have.
Any questions?
Mr. President, I do want to comment. I appreciate our Chief Financial Officer, Adele Felix, for stepping up when we did our committee meeting last Thursday at 2 o'clock. Unfortunately, Ms. Richards wasn't able to attend, and we now know why. And so I just wanted to convey the next subsequent report. She did a great job filling in. Thank you.
Thank you.
I coach Ms. Felix well. Next item is 13B, report regarding tax collected for December 2019. I'm telling you, after 7:15, man, we get going.
Mrs. Adele Felix will report on the monthly taxes collected by the Hidalgo County Tax Office on behalf of McAllen ISD for December 2019. And this item is for information purposes only. Ms. Felix.
Okay, thank you. Through December 2019, we've collected total taxes of, collected to date, $37,465,416.32, with current collections at 41.35 as compared to last year at this time at 41.87, and delinquent taxes at 17.92 compared to 21.84 as previously discussed by Ms. Salazar. And
Any
Thank you.
questions? Okay, thank you very much. We go to action items in closed session. 14A, approval of human resource recommendations for school year 2019-2020. Dr. Gonzalez?
So moved.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 14B, human
I
resource,
mean, 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 0,
5-0.
right? 4, Debbie?
4.
Well,
4
Sam.
and Sam, 5.
Oh,
5-0, counting Sam.
Sam.
He didn't abstain, he was out of the room.
Oh, Sam, you're not voting, Sam?
Yes, he was talking about Larry.
Oh, so it's 5-0.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Ito.
Well,
14B, human resource employee resignations for school year 2019-2020. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. Human Resources is submitting a list of resignations for the 2019-2020 school year under separate cover for discussion during closed session, and this item is for information purposes only.
Thank you. Thank you. 14C, pending or potential litigation
No report.
and possible real estate acquisition.
No report.
Okay. I need a motion on the floor to accept, hold on, to accept the consent agenda A through H.
yes.
Second.
wait,
Well, he
I
can't
need a
make it.
motion.
I
So-
thought I needed to pull D out.
So can you pull D? He doesn't
You,
want D.
you want D out?
He doesn't want D.
Oh, no, I don't need anything else.
Okay,
I'm
I
good.
just need I out.
Okay, so I move that we approve items 15A through 15H, leaving out 15I.
Second,
A motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes
5-0.
5-0. Now, we're going to go to item 15I, and there's a potential conflict with Mr. Furina and with Mr. Esparza. The proper paperwork will be presented to the board. And we have 15I, approval of interlocal cooperation agreement between the County of Hidalgo and McAllen Independent
So
School
moved.
District.
second,
We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You don't have to speak. Oppose? Motion passes 1-2-3-4-0.
4-0-2.
402. Yes, sir. Okay. We go to 16B1, approval of update of, no,
nope.
Can we still talk about it?
no.
It's a joke, people.
So we go to 16C, approval of termination of contract for Foremost Telecommunication. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The district is requesting termination of the contract, and we are requesting action on this item.
So moved?
Second,
We have a motion, the second. Any discussion?
yeehaw, thank you.
So-
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes 1, 2,
5-0.
3, 4, 5-0. We go to 16D1, approval of the McAllen Independent School District budget amendment for fiscal year beginning in July 1st, 2019, and ending in June 30th, 2020. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Administration is recommending the approval of the January 2020 budget amendment for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. And once again, administration is recommending action on this item.
Move to approve?
Second,
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We go to 16E, Board of Trustee items, approval of board minutes for the following. E1A, special board meeting December 16, 2019. E1B, board workshop December 16, 2019. C, special board meeting January 3rd, 2020. E, special board meeting January 13, 2020. And regular board meeting January 13, 2020. Can I get a motion?
second,
Got a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. If we can get,
I move that we move our approve our schedule of future meetings, 17A through 17I.
second,
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion?
Just to clarify, on the 24th, it's at,
Oh, yes, this new schedule.
So let's take no action on this item. So with that being said, we take no action on this item.
oh, well, it's right here. It's right here. So I'll amend my motion to include revised, which is given to us 17A through 17M.
I have just a housekeeping question. Was this posted with ample time?
No.
Okay, so as
No,
of now,
I think the best thing to do is take no action.
yeah,
on
we'll
this
take
item.
no action on this item. With that being said, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Got a motion to adjourn, a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, all. Y'all have a great evening.
All that? Yes, I did. See you, Sam.